LinkedIn is patriarchy in a bottle and why that breaks job. How digital deference turned hiring into performance art. Hi, my name is Sarah Trumbull. I am the founder and CEO of the Job Applicant Perspective, the first anonymous user reviews for job ads across the U.S. Consider us like Yelp in a world of professionally mandated fine dining with no health department, no FDA, no requirement that anything on the job search menu has to exist, multiple examples that it doesn't. And yeah, it's very silly. It's a job market for lemons in the foundation layer of the global economy. And we're here to do something about it because, are we professionals or are we not? So this is a level of go-to-market awareness. Part of the thing of being a first mover, and especially when you're trying to flip, a multi-billion-dollar market, is to do a lot of go-to-market awareness stuff. Make people aware of what the issue in the market is and why what you're inventing is, something worth doing. And that's what this is for. It's also a level of public service for people who are struggling. This is my blog post. It's also in written form on Substack, and I also make little audio clips of this. Again, I'm a first mover, and I improve as I go. So it will be a work in progress, but I hope it'll bring value if that's your thing. So starting from the beginning, the platform where you are never enough. LinkedIn says it's where careers are built, but open the hood and the incentives tell a different story. The platform profits from your insecurity, from your fear of never being enough. The longer you chase, the more they win. It's patriarchy in a bottle, a system that tells you to polish harder, perform harder, obey harder, while withholding the very information you'd need to succeed, like what employers, recruiters, or algorithms are actually looking for, how to evaluate the jobs you're applying to, who you'd really be working with. When a market demands digitized deference, when users must perform submission instead of receiving transparency, it stops being a marketplace. Job seekers are trained to compete in an endless audition, optimizing resumes, boosting posts, decoding keywords, all while applying to jobs that often don't even exist. Meanwhile, platforms rake in profits from churn, not matches. The incentives aren't broken. They're working exactly as designed. The moment a vendor from any iteration of the talent acquisition industry, I'm picking on LinkedIn here, but it works for everybody, any of them are able to demand deference of a job-seeking stakeholder as opposed to required to earn the trust of those stakeholders in order to stay in business, we have ceased to operate in an economic market designed to bring value and begun to operate in one designed to extract it. And as far as I can tell, this is the seed from which sprang a global online job market for lemons. Who this is for? This post is for job seekers tired of performing for an opaque system, employers and recruiters frustrated by misalignment and disengagement, researchers, journalists, and policymakers exploring the dynamics of online labor markets, anyone interested in the intersection of technology, social power, and economic efficiency. When economic markets are built online with inverted deference flows, aka stakeholders deferring to vendors rather than vice versa, participants unconsciously import social scripts from hierarchical power structures. These scripts make economically irrational arrangements feel natural, appropriate, even inevitable. In making my economic critique poetic, the goal isn't just audacious polemical rhetoric, it's understanding. I'm explaining how a market for lemons got this far when it represents such straightforward economic folly. How we normalize economic absurdity without getting an embodied warning signal from our collective intuition, because the feeling of deference was an assumed natural way of being. But scaled deference is just mass theater. And in an age of information, a foundational market built on theater is not a thing we can ever economically do. Genuinely think about it. The online labor market is a series of five-star restaurants that, above all else, cannot be reviewed by people required to eat the food. Like legit. You have to flip it to another frame of reference to really feel just how unnatural of an economic marketplace it is and how dangerous. Anyway, they keep going. Here. So, kingdom and all its iterations. And there, my titling speaks of gender. And as a human woman in this world, it's an easy one to pick. But this story is not really related to being any one particular gender at all. We are all guilty of hierarchy. While patriarchy broadly represents the prototype of all of these hierarchical social power structures, it's hardly the only iteration of this human phenomenon. From the original social kingdom sprang its descendants, physical kingdoms, monarchies, religious kingdoms, theocracies, economic kingdoms, oligarchies, aristocracy, energy, and every other hierarchy that learned to sanctify power as a normalized given. Patriarchy serves as the clearest analogy because it remains the most enduring form of hierarchy. Yet this isn't about gender. It's about the performances hierarchy demands and the harm those performances inflict on all sides. All the while, these performances benefit the system, economic market system in this case, that sits between the actors. It's about how silence as professionalism and job seeking, which was always just an entitlement to comfort for employers, got extended to the market itself. How requiring stakeholders in a market to display digitized deference to the vendors may appear rational, but it undermines both participants and the market's capacity for self-correction, which in the case of the global economy creates global job markets for lemons. Genuinely think about it. Employment itself has been reviewed for at least 10 years now on Glassdoor. Like, the only people that can't be reviewed are the people say, so tell me about your resume. What? That doesn't make any sense. The market versus the stage. A functioning market requires trust, transparency, and honest information flow. It just does. On LinkedIn, job seekers guess what is needed, what is said and what is measured are often different. Employers signal little and rarely give actionable feedback. Platforms reward engagement, not outcomes. The result, this isn't a marketplace, it's a theater. Job seekers perform professionalism, employers perform discernment, and everyone is acting for the algorithms. The parallel to patriarchy is stark. One side is trained to perform gratitude, compliance, and agreeableness to survive, while the other side is entitled to comfort, control, and data without reciprocal obligation. I recognize that I'm using polemical descriptions here by calling this patriarchy, but if you watch my last two blogs about deference as value capture and superiority as value capture, those were academic discussions of the exact same phenomenon. Yeah, it's the same thing. Performance is currency. In online labor markets, professionalism isn't neutrality, it's a mask. To some degree, it always was a mask. But when hiring is scaled and global, it starts lacking the personal connection that balanced the mask and becomes purely performance. Job seekers decode signals, suppress frustration, and mirror expectations, paying with emotional labor just to stay in the game. And platforms monetize every second of that unpaid performance. On the opposite ends, there's also part of the in-group feel like they must also constantly perform to stay acceptable. Entitlement and its discontents. When platforms reward fawning, they sell entitlement to employers and shame to job seekers. Employers are promised, top talent is out there, just wait. Job seekers are told, differentiate harder, maybe the problem is you. If you're a woman in the world and you've heard the term, choose better. Like, it's the same energy. Everyone's performing, but one side overtly carries the financial costs while the other one carries the emotional ones. And the costs are distributed but hidden. Job seekers bear the obvious emotional toll while secretly paying in lost financial opportunities. Employers bear the obvious financial costs of inefficiency while secretly paying in organizational stagnation. The economic obesity, the emotional and intellectual obesity of too much comfort, it makes them profoundly unadaptable to simple, adjustable business needs. Engagement looks healthy on dashboards, but the system's actual purpose, matching people to jobs, quietly fails. Why this matters for market design? The LinkedIn as patriarchy metaphor isn't just provocative, it exposes a fundamental design flaw. Markets fail when they become too rigid and unadaptable. They aren't strong, they're fragile. That's why they try to dominate. They don't evolve to meet needs or adjust to changing real world conditions. Instead, they require their stakeholders to try harder, work better, learn more to meet us, as opposed to the market meeting the stakeholders. They require them to submit to control, manipulation, and norms of behavior to make the market itself unchanging. Platforms profit from churn, not outcomes. Users internalize failure they cannot control. This isn't individual failure, it's market failure by design. You can check out the research if you want. SSRN, my cat. SSRN working papers on online market dynamics, ghost job typologies, and two-sided Jevons paradoxes on OSF also have stuff too. Again, I have also previous blogs on my Substacks about this. Two-sided Jevons paradox from Williams Jevons. It describes what's going on in online hiring and dating too. I have stuff on Zenito too. And these are the foundations for understanding how platforms profit from misaligned incentives while hiding systemic dysfunction. Academic system theory, no. I present this blog as a working theory grounded in observed platform incentives. I welcome empirical testing and critique from economists, sociologists, and platform designers. This interconnects with my principle 6 of my theory of online market gravity on SSRN. It is the social emotional infrastructure mechanism that I believe helps explain the normalizing of an Econ 101 level market folly in online hiring that I spoke of in my last blog on a job market for lemons. Now imagine a platform where honesty is safe, performance isn't required, and feedback flows symmetrically. It's not a fantasy, and it's the blueprint for a functioning labor market in the digital age. And that's what we built at the Job Applicant Perspective. We build tools to restore accountability and trust in hiring. Job seekers flag scam, dead postings, and disrespectful processes. Recruiters see actionable feedback to improve matching, and employers escape noise by building trust where it counts. Not perfect outcomes, reliably imperfect ones. Reliably good enough outcomes. We're not trying to meet perfect people. We're trying to be reliably imperfect people. And honestly, coffee doesn't need to be tea. It could just be coffee. And you don't have to be upset that not everybody wants to apply to your company or that not everybody wants to hire you. Maybe you just want to hang out with tea if you're tea and coffee if you're coffee. The goal isn't just better hiring. It's a market that works for the people inside of it, not just a platform itself. The takeaway, LinkedIn didn't break the job market by accident. It broke it because of the marriage of patriarchal never enoughness and capitalism. The digitized deference the labor market felt entitled to require of its stakeholders allowed it to dominate users into meeting its needs instead of requiring itself to meet theirs. A social structure that once brought comfort to the powerful has now become an economic liability in the age of information. When good business depends on fast, transparent information flows, we cannot afford a labor market where the default norm is deference and performance instead of insight. Here's the problem. Labor markets built on trust cannot survive inside of social spaces built on comfort. For hiring markets, and by extension capitalism to function, online hiring must recover what newspapers once offered, accountability to the public that they serve. Online hiring will work only when vendors respectfully serve and adapt to the needs of the job-seeking labor force whose unpaid presence powers every last bit of its revenue. Yeah, that's the sell, that's the plot. You should stop by the Job Applicant Perspective because we're not perfect. We're building a Ford Taurus, but it's not a limousine that goes 2 miles an hour. It's a Ford Taurus that goes to full speed. You know? So yeah. We cannot promise you perfect anything. We can promise you honest a lot of things. Honestly reliable a lot of things. I hope you'll stop by. Thank you.